Okay, seeing none, we will move into unfinished business. And the first item is the BSI undergrounding straw ballot results.
We worked with the Burnstar Isles subcommittee, and the vote came back 52% for, 48% against. The city clerk's office did a yeoman's job making sure that every ballot that got returned was resent to the proper address. As far as we're concerned, a no vote, if you did not vote, you did not vote. That doesn't mean yes, it doesn't mean no. It means you didn't vote. So.
That's consistent with the way any election is.
In Florida, you're right.
Yes.
So, it's in front of you now. If you approve moving forward, what we're talking about is a potential $75 assessment per electrical account. And this is just the first step of an involved process. What we would do is, if you do move forward, we would then, before the end of the calendar year, put a resolution together with an intent to assess property owners. That assessment will show up on a tax bill, not this calendar year, but the following calendar year. We would, as a city, front the dollars, about $88,000 or so, to start the FP&L study. We would then be paid back with the assessment proceeds. In the same time, we would work with FP&L to develop their cost analysis. We would also have to sit down with Comcast to firm up what those costs are going to be. We would firm up what the costs for new lights, street lights are going to have to be. We would include in their project management costs. We would include in their landscaping and restoration, so that by the time all of those costs are gathered, the property owners in Burnstar Isles have a clear knowledge of what the total package is going to cost. Because the electrical portion is only a part of it. They need to know what the total package is going to cost and what the assessment might be per property owner, so that the next decision phase can be made. So what we are being asked today is, does the city council want to move forward with the staff putting together a resolution for an intent to assess the property owners for the FP&L study?
You want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
We discussed this in some depth, and we came up with a resolution. And this resolution was sent out, mailed out to every property owner in Burnstar Isles. Everyone was given the opportunity to vote. I'm a member of Twin Isles Country Club, but I can't speak for Twin Isles Country Club because I'm not on their board of directors, so I'm not a spokesperson for that organization. I think that the residents have spoken. We made a commitment to the residents that if the results were 50% plus one, that we would move forward with this. And I think as a council that it's incumbent upon us to keep our word and demonstrate that we will support our communities and we'll move forward.
I think the return was robust. I mean, it was better than what I had expected in the beginning, especially when, there was supposedly some controversy. But I think the return shows us that they want the answer. I mean, the only way to get to the answer is to move forward with this. And with the Twin Isles, would they only be assessed one assessment? I mean, how is that going to work as far as, that's my only question. Is it, how many assessments is the country club going to be assessed? Do we know?
No, not at this time, but that'll be worked out.
Okay.
I can't answer that question myself. I've attended some committee meetings, but I don't sit on the committee.
That would be one thing that I would want to know. Kim?
I agree. I think we have to move forward. And as far as the country club goes, we have talked and talked and talked and talked about this. If they were really concerned, I think they would have gotten out and voted. Really.
Or come to a meeting.
Yeah, come to see us.
So,
Yep. Tom?
Question for the attorney. Do the Florida statutes speak to a no vote, it being a non-vote being a no vote?
I cannot speak to this particular issue, but I'm not familiar with that. You know, an active vote means that, you know, you've got quorum and that you vote in favor of something as opposed to, like, just a tie. You know, there's got to be a positive vote for something to pass.
Well, I would like to see us move ahead on this so we can bring it to the point that that the community can really make a decision on what the total impact will be.
Nancy?
Well, I was just going to say, I know that there are a number of other areas that are looking at this as wanting to find out from Burnt Star Isles as a test case, if you will, so.
Gary?
I think this is very similar to the discussions we've had about this and with the cut and so forth. There's at some point you have to find out what the real story is. I kind of feel a little bit hesitant only because it seems like we've been talking about a lot of assessments for this particular community. However, in a prudent way, I think it's best for us to proceed and say, let's find out.
I think it's
And
the
they
way.
brought it to us.
Yeah, they brought it to
Yes.
us.
Exactly.
This isn't our idea.
Mhm. So what do we need to do with the item?
Do you need a
Let's
motion?
We'd like
Consensus to
direction
move forward and bring a resolution then,
Yeah.
with the intent.
with the intent to
a
create the
motion.
special assessment district?
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion or consensus?
Yes, motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
To move forward.
Nancy made the motion. Do you want a second,
Second.
Kim?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second to move forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, next we will move into the Team Punta Gorda Harbor Walk interactive signage.
Good morning, Nancy Johnson, CEO of Team Punta Gorda. This project is really just an update. We were here last September to discuss the initiation of the project, and I asked your permission to seek funding for it. Subsequently, we have 3 different funding sources for this project. The first of one we are ready to implement now, and that is the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Project grant. This is a collaborative project with the Charlotte Harbor Environmental Center, and the purpose of it is to educate the public about the value of our natural resources, and particularly the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary, to encourage the public to protect it. Also to provide amenities for the Harbor Walk. It's called Trails That Teach. You recall we have parks that teach on other areas of the Punta Gorda pathways, and that's been very successful. So the Charlotte Harbor Environmental Center will provide monthly talks about the estuary. The total project will be 6 signs. At this time, the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary portion of it is 2 signs. And the Nature Conservancy, it's coincidental with their presentation today, is also going to be requesting separately a sign related to the Oyster Reef Project. But all of the signs will match. But even though they're paid for by 3 different funding sources, they will all be the same design. And they are designed to the city specification that is already in existence, the one that was created for the interpretive sign for Blanchard House, which is a 2-foot, I think 6-inch by 3-foot angled sign on a post, similar to that which many other cities have on their water pathways. Yeah, so these are the partners, CHEC, CHENEP. The city staff has been involved from the beginning in the design studio, has already seen the design and approved it. It's in compliance with the standard, and they have also assisted with sign location, which we will look to city staff to determine. Team Punta Gorda is managing the project. Show you what they look like. This is the estuary sign. What is an estuary? And notice the ribbon down the left side. That's also consistent with the wayfinder signs that we've been working with the city on, stating that it's the Harbor Walk as opposed to downtown or some other district. Let's see, next one. And this is the second sign that's been designed at this time, and that's the mangroves. We expect that future signs will be designed to feature other. They have not been determined the topics yet, but for instance, one, if it were to go out on the way to Ponce Park, in the future, it could be about fish species, since that's a major fishing pier. A couple of them will likely find their way to Gilchrist when it's redesigned, but that will be up to city staff to make those recommendations. We have a couple slides about the location here. Yeah, so the two signs that we are updating you on today that are ready to go in production are the two that I just showed you, the estuary and the mangrove. And the proposed locations can be seen on the slide. We have a detail. Thank you, Joan. This is the estuary sign location, which is just east of Marriage Point and the Hurricane Charlie sculpture. And it's a nice open spot for a sign telling about the estuary and its purpose, and it's well-traveled. Should be a good spot for it. And then this is the view if you're standing reading the sign. That's what you would see.
So you're gonna put it by the walkway or by the seawall? Where's it gonna go? Right there in the grass by the tree?
No. Closer to the walkway, I'm told, by staff. Okay, and then the other location of the other sign is in the heavily mangroved area on the east part of the Harbor Walk. It would go there. And the Nature Conservancy will, at another time, be proposing their sign go near the entrance to the oyster reef. There's a pier there, and theirs would go there. So we'd have one at the east end of the Harbor Walk, one about the middle of the east portion, this one, and then one at the Marriage Point. That would be 3 for this end. And as I said, future ones could go when Gilchrist is completed. We'll let staff determine the location for us, but that would be a logical place to put some when Gilchrist is completed, and perhaps one in Ponce as it's redesigned. And there would be 6 in all. The last 3 are funded by the Marine Advisory Committee, and that grant doesn't start until October. So at that time, we'll be getting some advice from the Nature Conservancy and check about the content, and their volunteers put together the content, Charlotte Harbor Environmental Center. So it's a collaborative project. Here's the timeline for these first 2. We'd like to proceed with submitting this design for fabrication. It's already been through the design studio and the CHINUP approval process, and get them fabricated in July and August, installed by August, September, and have a little ribbon cutting in late September with the city.
Who's making the application to MAC?
Oh, it's already been made. Team Punta Gorda.
Team Punta Gorda?
Already been made, presented, and approved.
Okay.
So the financing is secure.
Financing's done.
Should the city seal be on there somewhere?
Of course.
I didn't see
Isn't it on there?
No.
I didn't see it.
Okay, well then, that will, absolutely, should be and will be.
Nancy?
You're right, it's
You're right,
not.
it's not.
Okay, duly noted.
Is it possible that there's a lot of effort that has gone into some of these, and that some of these signs could be repeated, so that it's not just 6 different signs, but another, like the estuary, what is an estuary sign? People might not all walk in that one particular location, and it's great information. So is that something?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I will put that the group has not determined the content for the remaining signs, but I will certainly pass that input along. That's a good suggestion. Yeah, could be. I mean, at the other end.
Just a
Yeah.
notion.
we'll consider that, sure.
Thank you for the
Thank you
work
for-
that you've done, and I think that we were
Yeah.
in support of this the first time you brought it to us. As I ride through the park, it's rare that I don't see people stop in front of the Ponce sign and read about all of the background. I think it's time that Ponce had some competition.
Well, I think it's important that we continue to educate the public about the preservation of the harbor, and that has become a focus of our maritime committee over the last 2 years to work on that as a priority. So, thank you.
No, great work. Do we need a?
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yes.
Shirley.
Yeah, every time we talk about signs, I get another gray hair. Is it possible that these signs can be donated to the city so that they become city signs and the
Oh,
city is
absolutely.
responsible for placement? I would feel more comfortable if they were city signs. Otherwise, every organization who wants to put a sign up, we might have difficulty saying no.
Good point. Thank you.
Okay.
We will be happy to donate them to the city. That is not a problem.
We definitely need the city seal on there.
You are so right, Madam Mayor. We will see that that happens. Yeah, the design has already been approved by CHINEP, so I don't think there'll be any problem with adding another element to
Well, I would hope
the
not.
logo section. Sure not.
How big are they?
They're listening.
They're the same standard as the Blanchard House signs, which are, they're 3 feet this way and 2 feet this way, and they stand off the ground on a post, and they're on an angle.
Okay.
And it's a very common design on other cities' informational signs. It's not a particularly original, design, but it is the city standard.
No, it looks
For those
good.
signs.
It just looks a little bit busy. There's a lot of stuff, so I thought the bigger it is, the
Well,
more-
that is the city spec. In terms of the busyness, I would kind of concur with you a little bit, but that was, CHINEP wanted all of that in there
Sure.
and felt very
I just thought
strongly
if it
about
was
it.
a little bigger, it would give a little bit more white space, so easier to read, I guess.
Mhm.
Not that it's not easy to read, but it's just so much.
I don't know what the process is for making them bigger in terms of the city specifications, since that's what they comply with right now. If We'd
It'll
have
look
to
better when it's bigger.
change that. What?
When it's on a bigger,
Yeah.
it even looks better. Well, that's a different sign.
Well, I can consult with staff on that.
And what do we need to move it forward? Just,
Well, if you would maybe approve the acceptance of the donation of these signs and be responsible for installing them, that would be fine.
okay.
So I'll move to accept the donation of the signs with the addition of the city seal.
Second?
So we have a motion, a second, to accept the donation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
May I make one remark about that, and that is that the 5 signs that are under Team Gorda, we easily donate. We'll have to ask the Nature Conservancy about the Oyster Reef sign, which is right now their donation.
Okay.
So we'll have to consult with them and ask if they're willing. I'm sure they will be, but we can only offer on our 5.
Right.
So, yes. Okay.
And we haven't seen their content.
And we haven't seen their content yet. It's not done yet. So
Okay.
that's
So
down the
that'll
road.
be another process.
Another,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have renewal of the sulfide odor control contract.
Okay.
Mr. Odor Control himself.
Yeah, call me Dr. Stinky. I had, as you're all aware, I had taken issue with the contract because as it was presented to us, it was originally proposed at $91,000, but had in application been closer to $287,000 to $290,000 per year, and I wanted to know why that occurred. In meeting with city officials and also with the supplier, we were able to glean that the numbers that were provided for the bid were provided directly by the city. So there was an apple that was bid. Everybody bid on that number. The winning supplier that we're discussing, is it, how do you say it, Evoqua? Evoqua, in 2011, bid that bid, but took exception in the letter saying that they did not believe that these were reasonable numbers. So they immediately out the gate understood that they were bidding an apple, but it really wasn't the whole basket. And they did take issue with that, and I credit them for that. That's number one. Number two, the technology that was bid, from my perspective and my experience in industry, is the Cadillac or the Rolls-Royce of that technology. It's easier, it's safer, it's also more consistent. Hydrogen peroxide, coupled with a little bit of iron catalyst, is a very second only to ozone as far as oxidative capabilities. This is probably too technical, I apologize, but it is much safer to use that type of material and much more forgiving than other types of materials used for this application. With that said, I don't think that this is a low-cost bid. I don't think it's an exorbitant bid. And I also want to compliment the supplier, because the original scenario used a air scrubber that was used caustic and bleach in the process of using that air scrubber. The history was that was kind of marginal, that there were excursions and that there were complaints. And the supplier has added, in not only in this area but also in a lot of other areas, a great value in the service they've given, and they put in a biofilter scrubber on their nickel. They didn't come to the city for money. They said, we made a commitment to do this job for this money, and they did that. They didn't fudge it. They put that in to about 2014, and from what I'm understanding, that's about when the complaints pretty much stopped. So, and that is a better technology. So I think that this has been an ethical, reasonable, and technically correct supplier, and my recommendation would be to go forward with the contract is now. I'm very comfortable that the city is getting great value for what they're doing. With that said, my caveat is for futures, I would strongly encourage the city to establish relationships by inviting other suppliers to come in and just ask them to take a look around for futures, because we are going to be going into this new RO plant where we are going to need clean-in-place technologies, we are going to need scale control technologies, and possibly some more corrosion control technologies for the infrastructure of our city. And some of these suppliers can supply all of this, or they partner with people to do, and it would behoove us in all these water treatment applications, from my perspective, to invite other suppliers in, take a look, let them get familiar with us instead of just bidding a cold number, so that they better understand the system. I think this supplier understood when they bid it that they didn't know the system, and stated that right in the front area. They had concerns, and then they got to learn the system very well. I think they've done an outstanding job. So, anyway, my recommendation is to go forward, and can I just make that motion?
Yes.
You want any more discussion?
Second.
I'm okay.
Okay, so moved and
We have a
seconded.
motion and a second to approve the contract with Evoqua. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you for doing all of
Yes,
that research.
thank you.
Thank you.
It was fun.
It is, it is 10:20, and we are going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 10:30.
Nobody's left?
Okay, it is 10:30, and we are back in session, and we are moving into new business, the first of which is the water system and wastewater system connection fees.
So actually, there is two parts to this item. Let me do the first part first. Since the city received a 50% grant from the Southwest Florida Water Management District for its RO plant, we would like council direction to decrease the water impact fee by $576, as stipulated in the rate study that was done back in August of 2015. The rate study recommended that we consider a water impact fee reduction if we got the grant. And since we did, and we already put our first invoice in to get reimbursed, we would like to move forward with bringing this item before the Utility Advisory Board and then back to council. It would require an ordinance change to decrease the water impact fee by $576. Now, it would affect this project particularly, and other projects that come forward. This is the water portion, not the sewer portion, but the water portion. So we would be, the current water impact fee is $2,646 per unit, per ERU. So it would bring it down to somewhere around $2,100.
So that was the recommendation.
That was the recommendation of the rate study. If we receive the grant, which we did, Southwest Florida approved it, we'll be getting the reimbursement as we go along with the RO plan, so I think we need to honor that.
I do too.
I do too.
Yeah, I agree.
I would encourage us sending it back to the utility board for discussion.
Do we have to?
Well, I think it would, I think it
I
would
think
be
we should.
appropriate.
It would be, I think, a courtesy to do that.
Okay. But in the meantime, I mean, I would think the faster the better.
Yeah, we'll start on it right away.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The second part of the discussion relates to developments of this type, and this particular is RV, but it can also apply to other types of developments such as this. Staff, through the concurrence of our city attorney, regard this type of development as residential. There's only two parts to our impact fee ordinance, it's residential and commercial. Now, you
No,
just...
residential or non-residential?
Residential, non-residential. Excuse me. You did hear that the project was designed in a way where the developer assumed it was commercial. The design of the site has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not you consider it residential or non-residential. The design is a cost-effective design. Our utility staff sit with all property owners to try and make sure that they develop it and work with them to develop the site in as cost-effective manner as they possibly can. That's what they did. If you feel that RV parks such as this should be considered in a separate type of category, you can do that. You can do that. We can amend our ordinance and take a type of development such as this, such as mobile home parks and whatever, and try and create a different category, in which case a different rate would be established. Right now, it's either residential or non-residential. We've determined that it is residential, so that's how to frame the discussion. If a majority of council wants us to consider another category, our finance director can just come up and discuss with you the implications of what that might be.
So as far as the metering goes, does that have an effect on,
No?
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 Okay. Kim?
Okay, so there's residential and non-residential. Is there commercial?
No.
I
No.
mean, so
For
what,
impact fees, no.
okay, so, when the bank or Sunloft built, it's non-residential?
Correct.
Okay. I think that we do need another category, because, I don't think that, and, I mean, unless you're gonna call residential or commercial, because what would non-residential is commercial. And I think
Well,
that we
sorry.
conflict with the state, the state's saying a certain period of time is considered residential and then non-residential, so we're kind of conflicting there, and even with the county. So I think that this particular group was under a different impression.
Gary?
I have a question. Does an impact, I think I know the answer, but I want to be clear. Does an impact fee address infrastructural issues, or does it address usage issues?
An impact fee is to help assist in paying for future growth of in this case, a utility system. That the more development you might have may require the city's infrastructure to accommodate those needs over time. We may have to enlarge a plant. We may have to create new transmission lines. So it's to assist in helping to pay for that. It never pays for the whole thing.
Yeah, I understand, but that's my point. So it's really to assist in the establishment of the infrastructure to be able to handle the clients in the first place.
Yeah.
So in my mind, whether we make a separate so forth, you have to design an infrastructure for the worst-case scenario. So even though a business such as an RV might have only a 20% accommodation in the summer and a 95% or whatever it is in the winter, you have to design for that 95%. And that's what the impact is relative to what the city is, in my way of thinking. You're gonna need a 10-inch line to be able to service those people in the winter, even though you don't need that in the summer, whatever that line is. I'm just making up a number. So it seems to me that the infrastructure requirement is really almost based on what the potential ultimate maximum usage could be, based on that design. And that's what I think an impact fee should address. I don't care whether it's residential or non-residential in my mind. It seems as that's what an impact fee should be, is what that subsidy is for that potential infrastructural cost, whether it's present or future.
I agree, but I guess what I'm saying is that, let's use Sunlaw, for instance. They were non-residential. They have, 4 restaurants in there? They have, a spa. I mean, their use has got to be far more intensive than, somebody who's only there for a few months, yet they were deemed to be non-residential. And they are non-residential, I mean, they're business, but I think their impact will be more when we have those type of and I know restaurants have to pay a bigger impact fee for building, not just utilities, but they have different ones. So I guess I'm just seeing that there's a disparity there between what this is, when people can only be there 6 months, and you're right, when in the winter, when it's 90%, you have to plan for that because it needs to be used at that point. But I still don't think it's it is a residence, so that's a little confusing, but it's a temporary type of
It
situation.
is, but as soon as those people leave, somebody else could come in. And then I'm thinking, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking about the meters, like a hotel. They're not metering every hotel room. You're not, in your hotel bill, it's not like, well, you use 6.2 gallons, so here's your bill. But in this instance, I don't know if they would be metering the people that have the spot. I mean, like, I'm thinking, like our electric at the marina. They're the user, they pay, so that's why I'm trying to work through all that.
I would prefer to have somebody from the utility department talk about the mechanics of that. I just know law.
Gary?
And this may be a reason, as Kim was pointing out, that we might need a different category here, because I don't see that this equates to hotel, because, except for some, very few, and I'm not sure that any in the town do, maybe a residence in Marriott if it were to come, but you don't typically have a kitchen and laundry and so forth in a hotel room. You might have a laundry that's shared somewhere on a floor, but you don't have the kitchen and those other uses. So the water usage and the utility usage of a residential motorhome is going to be different than a hotel, and that might be, it's a muddy situation.
Tom?
We may be opening up a bigger can of worms here than we want to. I'd like to point out that almost half of our residents are here it's a temporary, LDR is referred to a permanent installation. Well, those folks aren't here permanently. So we would have to maybe consider a revision to that LDR.
Good point.
But they're not built to that standard, where that place is required to only. In your home, you can have it anytime you want, you know, it's 24 people. I mean, it is a home, it's a residence.
But you're still living there.
Right, but what I'm saying is they couldn't allow that in their development. It's not allowed. The county wouldn't allow it, and so in a home, you can,
Mr. Jackson, would
Yes.
you like to have some input on this discussion?
I agree with a lot of what's being said up here. When we size water lines, the major driver for a water line size is fire flow and fire protection. So the residential hotel versus RV site is a smaller impact to us because we've already sized the line larger than those two because of the fire flow issue. So, it becomes, in my mind, it becomes a definition of what is residential and what is commercial. And our ordinance has always, been a little bit silent on that, and then staff has had to interpret that in the past.
what's your opinion?
I know AWWA sets different, American Water Works Association sets different flow values for RV than they do for hotels, than they do for residential. And I've seen communities do it both ways.
So if we were to explore a new category, though, it would be something in between residential and non-residential? Or it would be specifically for RVs or,
Commercial.
but then that still leaves another definition out there that's, is this really commercial?
I can tell you, and the city attorney may or may not want to weigh in and add to this, that Sarasota County, and I'm going to use them as an example because they're a close neighbor, they have many categories of ERU equivalencies. In other words, a resident is one ERU, an RV may be 0.4 ERUs, a hotel may be 0.6 ERUs, and it gets very, very complicated. It can get very complicated.
Plus, it's also different depending upon what the nature of your community happens to be. You can have a community where you have these condominiums, which clearly would be considered to be residential, but are only occupied for a very small portion of the year. Those folks might argue that they should be treated differently than a single-family home. Yet you may have a single-family home that is occupied for even less than the condominium, and the condominium has a great deal of water use. So it is very complicated. When I was asked to look at this a year or two ago on behalf of another mobile home park, I threw out there the challenge to find some recognized study that shows what the difference would be between a mobile home, an RV, a condo, and that's the only way you can really make any distinction in terms of classifications for rates or impact fees or what have you. And they were unable to come up with anything definitive. So whatever some other community might do, it might be apples and oranges compared to what the situation is here.
What else, do we have any others? That can only be occupied for 6 months? Do we have anything else in the city of
Yeah,
Punta
but-
Gorda?
but it-
That's really the crux of it, because a home, you don't have that rule. With them, they have that rule, they can't.
But when that person picks up and moves, can another person come into that spot? Or do they
Yes.
own the
Well,
spot?
I guess I don't know how they're planning.
Yeah,
to
I
do
don't
it,
know.
But it's, and that's,
I
the-
would
and
doubt-
that's,
I
and that's
would
the
doubt that they
county's,
would.
that's the county's ordinance.
Right.
There's no, city doesn't have that requirement, state law doesn't have that requirement. That's a county zoning restriction.
Okay.
I had a question about metering. It never has mattered about metering because we have master meters and we have separate meters. And in this case, this is going to be master metered. Most of our mobile home parks, if not all of them, are all master metered. So that you'd mentioned separately, individually metered, never been has anything to do with anything because it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect the ordinance. The ordinance doesn't say anything about metering, it's just residential, non-residential. And you'd mentioned Sunloft, I'm not certain, that may be a mixed use. The commercial portion may
Oh,
have
yeah,
been
'cause
assessed
they're-
for the downstairs, and then we may have charged, I don't have an answer, I'm just saying, this is
You're right.
hopefully how we handle it. We separately metered it, I know, because those are separately metered, and we told them they had to do that because of the mixed-use purposes. So that's very possible. It might have what would have happened in Sunloft because of the condos up top.
But I guess my point was, it seems like the restaurants would be a much higher use of utilities than just a home.
I'm going back to what I said, my under concept of what an impact is, has to do with infrastructure. A restaurant's gonna use a lot more water. That doesn't mean that you have to put in a 2-inch larger main. We just heard that that's really based on fire. So the impact is based on infrastructure, not on usage. Conversely, including in the case of the motorhome park that we're discussing, when they have full occupancy, their usage rate is gonna be high, and there's gonna be a positive revenue source towards the city for that. But that's not the purpose of the impact fee. The purpose of the impact fee is to pre-plan a subsidy for the impact on infrastructure. And I don't think we should
Mix the two.
mix the two.
Nancy?
Well, and just, I understand what David is saying about condos and homes, but there isn't any ordinance that says that they can't be occupied, you know, for more than 6 months. I mean, it's assumed the people can live in there as long as they want. In this case, our county has an ordinance that says they can't. So it's restricted to be something like a extended hotel type of a situation, as opposed to a full residence, per se. Because we allow, Encore Village, I think we have motor coaches in there. I see them in there all year round, so I don't think we have any restriction.
No.
So that,
Can we ask Jerry what?
Yeah, I was getting all the comments first.
There were several questions raised and comments made that I would like to address. Very quickly, Mr. Koenig pointed out that the design it's the most cost-effective design. The design that utilizes 2 lines, which is what this RV park is doing, a separate fire line and a separate, is it a separate water line, actually costs more than if they designed it to the residential standards, which just uses 1 line. So this is not a more cost-effective design for this RV park. The RV park, you're correct, Mayor Kiesling, these are not, there are some now that they have platted lots and the lots can be owned. That's not the case here. This is under single ownership by Tag Creekside LLC. So one person may not stay on a permanent basis, but when they leave, another person may come in. That is captured, though, the actual day-to-day usage is captured through the meter, and they pay for the water usage. What this is looking at is the connection fee to the lines that are in place. The lines were already sized to accommodate this. There was no increase in lines that had to be made. There was sufficient capacity to accommodate this development. The lines are simply internal lines that will be run through the site, connected to a single meter, and then that meter, of course, connecting to the external infrastructure. The other point that I would like to make is that with a home, and I think, I guess to reiterate, while a home is a permanent structure, a person can choose to only live there for a portion of the year, but they can also choose to live there for the full year. Whereas in this RV park, no one can choose to stay there for the full year. They are limited to the 180 days. If they stay longer than that, it gets taxed differently. They become a resident of the state and then are subject to our taxes. So there's all kinds of disincentives to staying less, and then it is not allowed under the county's code as well.
Jerry, just a question they ask, if somebody comes and they go into a facility and they take their spot for 180 days, and that 180 days up, That means they can't move to a different spot and say the same
No,
park.
they,
have to
they
actually move
must,
out of the park.
they
I just
must
wanna be clear
vacate the
about that.
park, correct.
Okay, so they must absolutely leave the park for 180 days.
No, they can stay for 180 days. They must completely vacate the park. I think they have to be gone for 30 days, and then they could come back in, but they must completely vacate the park. It's unlikely to happen, but that is under the statutes, that is what allowed. And the other distinction I wanted to make is an RV is not the same thing. We tend to sometimes talk about RVs and mobile homes in the same breath. A mobile home is regulated completely different than an RV. It's tied down. It may be used as a permanent residence. An RV may not be. And so I want to be sure when we talk about creating a separate category, you can certainly create a separate category that will address mobile homes, which certainly use less water and have less impact than a single-family home. But that is something, again, where you may choose to live in that mobile home year-round. And at one point, or I think still, there are things called park model RVs, which were designed to be placed on property and stay permanently. Park model RVs are prohibited under Charlotte County's RVP code. You may not place a park model, so you couldn't put something there that would stay there permanently, that would then be leased out to transient residents. This is more akin to a hotel than it is to any kind of a permanent residence.
Like, these don't have washers and dryers in them and those type of things.
Sure they do.
Some do, some do.
It's the same as living aboard a boat.
Yeah,
Yes.
but this is, and there are, and again, RV parks are all the rage now, and I've worked on 3 of them over the last 4 years. Some of them do limit, the RV park is limited to motor coaches. A motor coach will have a kitchen and will have the washer and dryer, but it is not, this park is not limited to motor coaches. It can be a fifth wheel, it can be just a pop-up camper. Those types of things will not have the kitchens and certainly not the washer and dryer.
Thank you. I guess I'm just, okay, you go.
Yeah, I was not familiar, to quote the county's ordinance, but I do have the county's ordinance here on the occupancy limit. And what it says is that an individual living site is strictly limited to 180 days by an individual or group of individuals. They cannot, that group of individuals or individual cannot go back to that same spot unless they vacated for a minimum of 30 days. It does not appear to prevent that individual from occupying another site for another 180 days, nor does it prevent that individual site from being occupied by another individual for, again, another 180 days. So an individual site can be occupied year-round, just not by, and year-round continuously, not by
The
an
same
individual
The
person.
same,
Correct.
yes, okay.
Correct.
I guess now hearing from the utility director and hearing more details, I think that if we do go into a different category, it's just gonna open up so many more issues. It's like opening a can of worms, so I'm kind of,
I mean, I agree with you, but I still don't think that this is a residence, is my thing. I mean, I just don't think motor homes or fifth wheels are, I mean, I know you live in them, but they're temporary. It's not a home. I mean,
Tom?
it's like, are we taxing the people that are on the boats, for their impact to our city? I mean, it's a temporary vacation kind of.
well, they're not putting in any infrastructure.
No, I know.
Tom?
Howard, could you redefine what we're asked to make a decision on?
You are being asked to make a decision as to whether or not the status quo, you agree with staff and the city attorney that the RV park is considered residential per our impact fee ordinance. If you don't agree, then you need to direct us to try and establish a different category.
Well, why can't we just make it non-residential?
Because you live there.
If you consider it non-residential, I guess you could tell us you consider it non-residential.
I'm not
I
there
think
yet.
that would require an ordinance amendment too, to provide a specific definition of non-residential, different from what the plan.
I mean, we consider
not there
that
yet.
people are living there.
Right. I mean, I guess I see what you're saying, but then I go back to the boat, like you were saying, impact. We provide a free pump-out boat for them. They do have an impact on our city. They do, you know, and we're providing free services for them. It's just, for me, the dollar number is a whole lot more for the residential than it is for the non-residential. And I think it's being overly burdensome to them. I mean, and, you know, if it
I
was
mean,
a
in my
couple
6
$100
years,
bucks.
this is the first one that we've talked about. So if it was a huge, you know, problem, I think we would have heard from more people, but I do agree, you know, the impacts are quite large. But are they living there? That's what I keep going back to. I'm not there with the non-residential. Gary?
It seems to me that what you have here is a question of the connecting. Is this connecting as a single entity, or is this connecting as a number of individual sites? This is, I'm moving a little bit here, is it seems like there's this one big site. Our cost, the impact to the city, is connecting our water and our sewer to their water and their sewer. It's that distance from the road to the front of your property, and that's it. We're not connecting to each individual site. They're not connecting each individual site to our line. They're only connecting one major line, and then they're doing all the spreading of those connections individually. If that's the case, then it's still residential, but it's more commercial in technicality.
Every single large, single-family development will be treated the same way. We provide the transmission lines to the site, and it's the responsibility of the property owner to put in all the distribution lines for every single home on that site, not us. Not us.
Nancy?
I'm wavering on this, but I'm thinking, you know, the Oaks on Henry is a residential, but it is a commercial endeavor. And I think this is the same thing, it's a commercial endeavor. So it's but the business is providing a space for people to live on a temporary basis. So it's, and I see what Gary is saying as far as what the demands can be on our system on something like that versus at Cheney Brothers, that I don't know what the demands might be, but I think that it's very, very different.
And even though, you know, they're not making a demand on our system at this time, we put the lines in ahead of time. We put the lines in way back when to, you know, with those fees and with the monies that we had at the time to make the system work and to be able to have development and expansion. So even though it's not the impact right now, you know, somehow we accommodated for that in the past. Kim?
So is Oaks on Henry non-residential?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, what do we,
what-
I mean, whether they lease or they sell their place, the city doesn't care what they do with that.
I mean, I didn't know why you brought that up.
I just said because it was a commercial endeavor, people are
Right.
leasing space, they're residing there under, I'm assuming, an annual lease type of thing. So it
what their
is
sign
more,
says.
it is a residence, but it's a commercial endeavor as
For the-
opposed to
okay.
individually selling properties, like condos and,
For the record, Dave Dre, I forgot to say that, apartments are considered residential.
okay.
So Pines, I know we don't have a lot of apartments, but Oaks on Henry, however they're being treated, they are going to be considered residential, whether they're selling condos or leasing on a monthly basis. The motel is commercial, but when you talk about commercial endeavor, to me, you build an apartment complex as a commercial endeavor, and so it's the same as what we're seeing here with the RV. It's a commercial endeavor, yes, It's just these are people who are living there. And you mentioned Cheney Brothers. If they require a 5-inch line for massive use, we're going to get them as per size of the line as opposed to ERUs. There's an equivalency of the size of the line versus ERUs, and that's how we calculate it for commercial use, impact fees.
I have one question.
Yes.
Do these folks receive mail at their individual sites?
Nancy?
I think it's the county ordinance that's really kind of playing havoc with this. And the county ordinance is the one that's really saying they can't live there longer. Otherwise, I think that,
Should be
why would they
cut and
restrict it?
dry, Yeah.
And the state is classifying them, if it's my understanding, to be a non-residential.
They do not receive mail at the facility?
Come to the podium. You're going to have to speak into the microphone.
Thank you for letting me come up.
State your name again for the clerk.
David Anthony. Just a couple little things, because my history is a mobile home business. And to me, there's some significant differences that I'd like for you to look at. When you're in a mobile home community, you must sign a lease, and you anticipate these expenses year-round. So your business plan as running a manufactured home community or a mobile home park, you have that income in your business plan. In the RV transient ordinance, which I'm under with the county, we cannot charge people for that usage. We're, again, exactly like a hotel. When they come there, they pay us a fee to stay per night, like a hotel, and we pay for the water consumption. So our business plan, when we sat down with the utility department, and they did a wonderful job. This is nothing negative against them. We sat down, and the direction I was given, and I have all the paperwork, was that we want you to design the system as a non-residential business. Because again, if you design a system as a residential business in a mobile home park, for example, which they're not the same, but we're somewhat misunderstanding, the water line and the fire line is all in one. And the discussions we had was that you are a non-residential business, and we require you to have a separate fire line. It wasn't my design, okay? It's what the city utility people wanted, and we agreed with them. And part of the, and he said that's the way they do it in non-residential. So for us to design the system with an additional water line was not a cost affected us for us to be more cost effective. That cost us over $300,000 more to develop it. And then we sat down and went through the structure on how the water would be, how we would pay for the water, the usage, which we have no problem paying for. But in putting together my development cost, I needed to know what my cost would be for water and sewer. So I was given all those sheets based upon being a non-residential usage. So our whole business plan is based upon that. Not that we were trying to save money, it's the way the system is designed. And the commercial rates for the water and the sewer, we're happy to pay for. We supply the bathhouses. We have a community center, obviously, which we have I'm gonna have 16 showers and over 14 washer and dryers, because I'm an RVer, I have a fifth wheel. 95% of the people do not, have washers and dryers in those. Some of those do, but those are designed like the county did. They came up with I'm jumping around, but they came up with two classifications. If you build an RV park where you sell the lots, then it's treated residential. If you build an RV community and lease the lots, you're considered transient, like a hotel. And so that's the way we did it with the county, and that's when we sat down with the utility department, did it. So that's how we based everything upon. So in my mind, we're no different than a hotel. People do not sign a lease with us. If you go into an apartment building, you go into a mobile home park, you sign a year lease, and you know what your costs are gonna be, whether you're there or not there. And the developer that's developing the condominium, in his cost, or in his apartment, if he's renting the apartment, in the cost of his apartment is built in the monthly fee. Because one of the things that really, really destroys us, and it probably would put us out of business, is, again, I built several mobile home parks in Shore Lakes. We pay a minimum monthly fee for water and sewers, residential, whether you use it or don't use it. And then you pay for your usage on top, okay? Well, so when we did our business plan for Ventura Lakes and people pay us so much per month to be there, that cost is in there, whether the tenant is there or not there. In this,